becoming a software developer. So at least over the past few weeks, we've touched a lot of things. We've talked about HTML, CSS, talked about basic JavaScript, and we've also touched um, DOM manipulation. So today, we'll be advancing our career, let me put it that way. And we'll be talking about, or we'll be treating something called advanced JavaScript programming. So don't be afraid, because sometimes when people hear the word advanced, they are always afraid like maybe they're about to start a complicated, journey. But trust me, by advanced I mean, using the knowledge we've had before, and trying to like learn some new things, just like you learn how to do 1 plus 1. But now we are going beyond 1 plus 1. We are going to maybe 1 times 1 or 2 times 3 or 2 raised to power 3. So nothing we are not introducing new things. Let me put it that way. So we are just trying to like, number one, showing you new ways of doing things. Number two, introducing some new concepts to you so that you'll be able to like write your codes and call yourself a professional programmer. So the first thing we are going to be talking about today is about an important concept in JavaScript, which is called scope. So let me just write that out. JavaScript scope. So let me give it this. So the question is, what is scope? Let me erase this. Well, scope means variable access. Like, what variables do you have access to when a code is running? So scope determines the accessibility of variables. It determines the accessibility of objects, the accessibility of functions from different parts of the code. So in JavaScript, there are two types of, I want to move this up. So in JavaScript, there are two types of scopes. So let me just write that down so that we can. So we have the first one, which is global scope. Oops. Then we have the second one, which is local scope. So sometimes the first one can be, you can call it global scope or parent scope or probably root scope. So you can call it one of these. Yeah. So either you call it global scope, parent, or root scope. So variables defined inside a function is a local scope. Variables defined inside a function is a local scope. Then what does that mean? So it means that they can only be accessed from within the functions, while variables defined outside of a function are in the global scope, and all the functions on the web page can access it. So what do I mean by that? I think what we can do is just probably put this in what's it called, in practice. But let me just write it out. So variables defined outside of a function So local scope are variables defined inside of a function. So don't worry too much about these terminologies, but it's something that you would really want to like understand what it is, and because it's going to really help you, and it's going to make you write programs that are bug free. Because trust me, nobody wants to write a program. Probably you develop WhatsApp and people are using WhatsApp and it's crashing. You don't want that, because It's crashing because probably you don't understand some things or you are not putting some things into consideration. So that is why we really need to understand what scopes are, the type of scope, and how these scopes can be accessed. So, like I said, JavaScript scope determines the accessibility of variables. It determines the accessibility of objects, determines the accessibility of functions from different parts of the code. So by default, in JavaScript, you are in the root scope, which is the window object, if you remember. And I think, let me show you what I am actually talking about. So let me share my browser window. So this is my browser, and let me just minimize this so that we can have. So this is actually my browser. So if I go into the console now, so let me actually, okay. So get this up. So in my console, if we do something like this function, let me say first function. First function. And inside there, I just do console.log. I want it to console.log. Console.log. What can we write? Okay, let's do test. Or probably let me write this inside my, then I can copy and paste it and put it inside the console so that you'll be able to see it very well. So let me just, inside there, let me do script.js. I love writing inside JS so that it's easier. So let's say I have this function, the first function. Then I can copy this, and I think I have it already. So if I enter this here, and the first function is part of the window scope. So I can check it in the window dot first function. You see it already. So if I check it, I have this test coming out. So which means this is part of the window scope, which is the global scope or the parent scope, or what else can we call it? The root scope. So these words can be used interchangeably, because sometimes you might be reading some tutorial somewhere and you see them using probably root scope or global scope. But generally, people refer to it, or programmers refer to it as global scope. So I think that's the general word they use. So if I do window here and I press this, so if I expand the window object, and if you remember, I told us this window is an object, so which has a lot of properties. So if we check that, what we wrote was we wrote first function. So you see it. So it is now part of the Windows or window object, first function. So if I expand this to, then I should be able to see, my function. And you see it throws something like scopes. So don't worry too much about this. You see it. We have script, then we have global scope. So it means it's in the global scope. So when you are working in the browser, it is called the root scope. Actually, the window object is called the root scope, or probably the parent scope. Now, what if I do something like this? Let me clear this off. Let's say, let me go back into my VSC because I love working here. Don't mind me. Or let me put them side by side. I think that would be better instead of switching windows over and over and over. So let me just have this side by side. So sorry, I just have to minimize this. Okay. So I just want to have my console and my VSC side by side so that instead of me switching, applications, sometimes it can be tedious. So let's have, what if I do something like this? If I do function, then let's call this second function. So if I call the second function, and inside there I do var variable a equals hello. So if I do this, oh, sorry, my hello should be a string. So if I do this, you know, so let's copy this. Let me copy this and run it in the console because I actually do the, I write, it's easier for me to be writing inside the BSC environment than writing on the console because I have to like take care of spaces and everything like that, and you know, it can be tedious sometimes. So what if I do something like this, you know, and if I check window dot second function, window dot second function, I get undefined. So now, what do you think is going to happen? Let me just comment this out, you know, so that I want also have this kind of, you know, so you know that if, let me clear this, if I do var a, oh sorry, var a equals hello, I can do console.log a, and it's going to give me hello back. You know that this is right. So presently I have var a, which is inside a function. Can I access that outside that function? I think you understand what I'm trying to drive at. You know, can I access that outside this function? Is it possible? You know, we have our function, which is this, and our function has var a. But can I access this var a outside the function? So let's do console.log a and let's see what we have. So I press enter. Oops, I have hello before. I think I have to clear this because yeah, it has something stored already. So let me just go again, copy this. Oops. So copy this. If I do this, I have var a. Then now I want to access var a. If I do this, I got an error. And the error is uncaught reference error. A is not defined. So imagine you are writing your program and you are like, now I know JavaScript, and you know, you write a function, you declare your variable inside that function, but later on you need to access the function outside of that. You need to access the variable outside of that function, and you know, you to yourself, you know, okay, I've done this, I've written my code, everything is working, and someone now tried it and you're getting error. You be like, well, you know, I've written this and everything is working. Why this? So that is why we really need to understand what scoping is all about when it comes to programming, not just JavaScript programming. It applies to all programming languages. So you see that we are unable to access var a, despite the fact that we have it already declared inside this function. So the only way we can get this var a is if we write the console.log inside this function. So inside this function, this console.log is what is, this is local variable. Let me put it that way. So anything declared inside here, inside this function, any variable declared inside this function is a local variable and can only be accessed from within the function. You can't access the variable outside the function. So if I do var, what's it called? Var, let me say new variable equals read one, for example. So this is a global variable. So this global variable can be accessed either outside a function or within a function. Don't worry too much. I know it's getting too much, but don't worry, we'll soon get there and you understand clearly what I'm trying to drive at. So I'm going to like, you know, do some exercises and you get it. So the only way to access this var a is within this what's it called? Within this function. So let me copy this function and let me run it in my console and see what I'm going to get. So if I run this inside it, Okay. So you see that. So if I call the second function, I get my hello back because I'm telling you, like inside this function, console.log hello. So I have hello. Now, the interesting thing is that functions have access to any variable in the root scope, in the global scope. So let me just write that out because I don't want us to be confused. So we have scoping. Let me write scope. We have scope. And within here, we have types of scope. We have the first one, which is global scope. We have the global scope or parent, parent or root scope. So you can call it this. Then secondly, we have the local scope. So which can sometimes you can call it the child scope. Depends on the kind of English you understand. The only thing about programming is not how much English you understand, is how much you can understand the programming language and work with it. So if let's do another example. So let me just console.log this, comment this out. So if I do something like var b equals, can I access this, a string, and my second function, which is this, let me copy this, and I do my second function, comment it on comment. So in my second function, I do console.log, okay, comment this out, and I have console.log b. So if I do this, like I said the other time, should I, okay, let's do a console.log a, because we already have a the other time. So I do console.log a, and I copy this, clear this, come back here, I send. So now within this second function, if we do what's it called? If we do console.log, oh sorry, let's do something. So instead of this, I have var. Let's try this because I think I can use this to explain better. So if we have, sorry, a string of hello here, and we have variable outside, and I do console.log b. So if I do this, and we come out, let me try this, and we have this. So if I call that function, which is second function, notice something. You notice that var b, can I access this, is outside this function. And inside that function, I am console logging b. So if I call this function, you can see that can I access this is printed out, because a function can access a global variable, but a local variable, which is this, is only accessible within this function. Once you go out of the function, you can't access that again. For example, so we have b that can be accessed there. So if I do console.log, let's see if we can access a, console.log a. So if I copy this and we run the program, we got a is not defined. But if I check second function to console.log b, I have can I access this. So I hope we understand. If we don't understand, we can ask questions. So we have access to variable b that is outside, but we don't have access to variable a outside the function. So let's do something. Let me do something else. So we have this already. What if we do something in the lines of we already declared b as variable, and inside this function, we want to change b from I can access this from a function. So let's say we have this, and you know, so if I copy this and I clear this and I run this again, so if I run this code, if I do console.log cos, okay, console.log b, what do you think is going to be the outcome? Because check this code. Initially, we are declaring a variable b, and we say variable b should store this value. Can I access this? So that means if we control log b, we should get can I access this. Then we have another function, which is second function. And within that function, we are saying that, okay, you know what? Change whatever value that b has already to whatever we have now, which is I can access this from a function. So that means we are expecting this to change when the code is running. But trust me, that might not be the case. So let's see what we have in the console. So if I send this now, you see that I'm getting the initial value, which is can I access this? So why is that? Then it's because console.log, which is outside, can only access whatever we have in the global variable. Then at that moment, it is can I access this until this function is run. So if we run this function, then the function is going to change b and set it and give it a new value, because b is inside, the new b is inside a function. So we have the same. Let's do that. So if I do, let's call the second function and see what we are going to have if we call it. We do second function, we run it. So if I check b again, console.log b, let's see what we have. We have I can access this from a function. So understanding these things, how it works, the global variable versus the local variable is going to like really help you when it comes to writing programming, um, 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 when it comes to using programming language to write code, to build stuff and the likes. So understanding this is very important, very important. Because if you don't understand, at the end of the day, you end up writing codes that are buggy. And sometimes you think you've written a code and it solves a particular solution, but at the end of the day, you spend time trying to debug where the problem is, and you won't understand where the problem is because you don't understand what scoping is. So if you understand what scoping is, like, okay, I'm declaring this variable, is it a global scope? Can it be accessed in a function? If you understand these things, then it's going to really help you. So let's do something like let's put this into play. Let's play. So you can just do. Hello.
Sorry, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Are you saying that if I really understand it clearly?
I can hear you clearly.
Okay. Can you hear me now clearly?
Yes, clearly.
Okay. Now, are you saying that if we want to declare a variable,
Okay.
a second function variable,
Okay.
are you saying that the global scope that is the parent variable will be recognized than the local one if we
No,
want to run it?
what I'm saying is, if you want to declare a variable, be very sure what you want to use the variable for. For example, don't worry, let me run the examples I want to give us. So after running that example, I think you should be able to understand better. But after doing that example, if you still don't understand it, just ask me the question, then I will make it very simpler. Okay?
All right, sir.
So let's do this example. So let's say I have another variable. Let's call this fun. So this equals the value of 5, which is a global variable. Then I have function. I can call this fun function. No, it's just a name. You can name your function anything you want, but just make sure you understand it. So inside this fun function, I have another variable declared with the same name. So, and I call this, instead of 5, I say hello. So here I am console logging this out. Console logging fun out. So the thing is, within this function, as soon as we create these curly brackets, and I told us last time, like, once you see this curly bracket, it means we are going to have some code that are going to be, run whenever this function is called. So sometimes in if too, if you see if, it has this parentheses, then it has these brackets. So the first thing here is the condition, and the second thing here is the code we are to run if the condition is met. So anytime, or let me say most times, don't let me say anytime, because there are some exceptions. So anytime you see, or most times when you see this curly bracket, it means we are to perform some, running of code inside whatever thing we have inside the curly brackets. So within this function, as soon as we create these curly brackets, we've created a child scoping. We've created a local scoping. As soon as, I hope we understand, we've created a local scope. As soon as this bracket is as soon as we create these brackets, so any code we write here, most times is going to be, not most times, it is local scope. So it's just like, as soon as you create a wall, so let me just say this curly bracket is a wall. So once you create a wall, you have your room. Everything inside that room is what is local to you. Then everything outside your room is what is global, because anybody can have access to anywhere outside your room or your compound. But anything within your compound is what? It is local to you. So anything outside is what? It is global. Anybody can pass in front of your streets, nobody cares. Anybody can ride a car or can ride a bicycle on your street, nobody cares. But inside your compound, it is local to you. So it is whoever you invite. So anything you have here is local. But then, since you have a compound and you can ride bicycle in your compound, you can also ride bicycle outside. So that means anything outside is also accessible to you. But whoever that is outside cannot have access to whatever you have inside your compound. I'm just trying to use that analogy to explain some things. So don't worry too much. I'm going to explain further. So let's create another function. I think that will really help us. So if I create another function and I do funner instead of funny, we have funner function. Let's mute ourselves, please. So we have this funner function, and inside this funner function, I can do, let me do born again. So instead of hello, I can say bye, and let's console.log again so that we see what we are getting. So let's console.log fun again inside here, and I think we can, let's do another function. I think that would be better. So if we do another function, which is function, then we do, let's do funnest. So funny, funner, funny. So yeah, instead of declaring a new fun, we are just changing an existing fun to something like, let's do, this is so funny. Then we can do console.log fun. So we have this. So okay, another thing is, so that you know the level, we have, let's do console.log fun outside of these functions too. So we have this code. So let's go over this, because it might be like, what is this guy doing? So we are declaring a variable of fun, which is going to have a value of 5. So that means this font is 5. So if you call font, it's going to print out 5 for you. So this is clear. Then we created 3 functions, and each of these functions, have their own local scope. So it's just like we have 3 compounds. So this is first compound. They have their own local scope. They have a lot of things they do inside there. But presently, we just have a variable which stores hello. We have console.log. Then we have another compound with these local variables. Then we have another compound with this, and we have this outside. So these are just little things like, okay, let's do something so that when we are printing to the console, we can actually understand, let's label them so that when we are, so here we can say the first, let's do the first function. This is the first function, so that when we have this in the, what's it called, the console, we should be able to understand which one is getting printed. Second function, and within this, I can say this is a third function. So this is code. So we have this. So let's run this code in our, what's it called, in our console, and let's see what we are going to get. So let's see what happens. So I paste this code here. I know you'll be like trying to like guess what might be the outcome. So let me just press enter and let's see what we get. Why? You know what? We get 5. So let me just do this. Let me do this is so that we can understand this too. This is outside of any function. Okay, so we have this. Let me just copy and rerun this. So if I do this, oh, see what we get. We got this is outside of any function. So that means the last console over here on line 30, the last console over here is running. And why is that? Why is that we are not getting all these console.log we are expecting this to print out? Well, it's because we are not calling the functions. So if I do something like this, let's call the functions. The first function is fun function. So let's call the second one, which is funner function. Then let's call the third one, which is funnest function. Funnest function. So if you copy this, let's rerun this in our console. So I refresh this, I send this. Oh boy, we got some things back. So the first one we got is, this is outside of any function, we got 5. Then the first function, we got hello. But on a normal day, are we expected to get hello? Because we have 5. Then the second function, we got by. Then the third function, we got so funny. Okay, let me do something so that it's going to be clearer. Because the way it's written, it's kind of. So let me just add colon, then run. I just want us to understand what this scoping is all about. Because once you do, then trust me, you can call yourself a programmer. But for now, you're not yet a programmer. So because this is outside of any function, which is line 30, and we run the first fun function, which has var fun equals hello. So it's console.log hello for us, which is right. Then the funner function, we got this local variable. It's console.log, the local variable back to us, which is by. The third one, we didn't set a new function. So we are saying here that we already have what function is, what fun is. So we are not assigning a new fun. We are changing existing fun to this. So we are changing the existing fun, and we console.log that out, and we got this. So, I think you are understanding what it's actually happening. So so this fun override whatever we have here. Then let's do something again. So what if I console.log the last one? Let's see what we are going to get. So instead of having, we have it here outside of any function. This is the second. Can we please mute ourselves? Hello, can we mute ourselves, please? Okay. So I want to run this again so that I will explain and you understand what is actually happening. So if I go back here and I clear this and I rerun my code. So we have the first console.log. So this is actually printing fun, and fun is outside all functions. And this is the global variable. So it prints fun, which is a global variable. Then our code enters fun function. It goes back and read, okay, we have a new variable fun, which equals to hello, and it's console.log that. Then it's going into funner function. We have a new variable fun, which is by. Then let me console.log out. Then it goes inside the funnest function and be like, we have a fun variable, but this is not new. It has been defined before, which is this. Then we have 5. So that means whatever that we have inside fun, which is 5, then do what? Assign a new variable to it. So once you assign a new variable to it, then print it out. So once we are done, then the last one is console.log. This is the second function. And you see that we get this is second function outside of any function. So funny. So that means whatever that we have here has been reassigned. It overrides what we have initially. So it has changed. So one thing I want to show you is that, if we do this, let's comment this out. And okay, so let's have this. So if we go back here again and run this code without the first declaration of the fun. So if we do this, we are going to get, we get this is so funny. Oh, let me reload so that we have something fresh from the browser. Okay, so if I run the code and this is what I got. So the first time is going to print out fun, but fun is not available because it's not declared anywhere. You check my code, it's not declared. So it says uncaught error, fun is not defined. So it's not defined. But then we have, oops, what's this? I beg, let me rerun this. My brother is sending some things to me, which I don't. He's trying to communicate with me. So we have fun is not available, then it opts out. So what I'm actually saying is like, we have different scoping and we have the global, we have the local variable. But then I think it's kind of getting complicated. But let's do something. So this might actually be giving us problem because we are naming our variable the same way. So we might not really understand. So let me just keep it very simple. So let me delete all this and go back to the way we grabbed it before. So let's do var fun equals 5. I think this will really help in understanding.
Hello.
Yeah, with you.
Okay. Sorry, from the last one we did, I don't know. When you commented the var fun out,
Yeah.
why is it that the others did not? The variable were declared inside the local. I declared as local scope. Why did it run?
Okay. Let me go back there. So I think, yep, we have this.
Yes.
Okay. So let me comment this out again. Then if we do this should run, right? So if I call fun function, I should get something back, which is so. No, don't worry. I'm trying to understand something. So if we do this, actually my program encounters a problem and it opts out of the program.
Exactly.
That is what is happening with, if you have a program, if you develop a program and there is an error somewhere, once the environment sees the error, it's going to throw the error out, and it will stop executing other programs that you have. So if we do this, I commented that out. If I do this now, I got this error. So it's telling me like, you know what, you have an error somewhere, go and correct it. Once you correct it, then you can come back and execute other what's it called, or other programs. So if your environment ignores this error, trust me, probably your code is even relying on this particular variable. Let's say your code is actually relying on this. So definitely you are going to get a lot of errors. So the program is just trying to prevent us from having huge errors so that you won't know which one is which. So imagine all my programs, all these fonts I wrote, everything is dependent on this particular font, and this is not, for example, let's say, okay, let's do this. So I think this will really, really help us. So if in this particular code, we have font which is equals to hello, and this means this font has been declared already somewhere. And trust me, this is not declared anywhere because we can't see anywhere that is declared. So definitely this is dependent on another variable somewhere. So if this is not in existence, that means your program is going to come here again and be like, you have error. So once it opts out of this, it's going to come here again, print out another error, maybe 100 lines of errors. Then it's going to opt out. So you have huge information to deal with. So the program, once it encounters a single error, is going to opt out so that you will know where the error is. So that when you are trying to find where your code is going wrong, you'll be able to identify where the problem is. I hope we understand. So, but if I do something like this, we won't get error. Like this is not in existence, then this is not in existence. So if I do this, I'm going to have results. I hope we understand. So it's because I'm printing out, I'm getting something here that is not in existence. Once this is reached, it's going to be like, Ridwan, this is not in existence. I have an error. Deal with this first. So once you are done with this and you've solved the error, then I can continue running other functions or other things you want me to do. But then before I move forward, please do this. So this is a program. So, and I told us something yesterday, like when we were talking about imperative and declarative. So imagine something is dependent on something else. If this happens, then do this. If this not happen, then do this. If this not happen, then do this. So that is declarative. So in that particular paradigm, you might be having a lot of issues if one code is dependent on another, which is dependent on another code, which is dependent on another code. So that means if there is a problem, it might be very, very difficult for you to like trace where the problem is coming from. So that is why this is not running in the first place. It's because we encountered an error here. I think that is clear, right? Oops. So we can move forward. Let me give us another example so that we understand scoping very well. Then we'll move to something else. So let's say I want to go back to my, actually deleted it. Okay. So if I do this now and I do console.log font, if I do font, we have this. So when we run font in my browser, let's clear this. If I run font in my browser, font function, if I run font function, so I got 5 back. So JavaScript runs the function, like it runs this function, and it prints out whatever we have here. So JavaScript is going to say, like, okay, let me use this. So if you run this function, like we call it a font function. So if we run this function, this is going to get run, and it's going to come here and be like, okay, I have font function. Okay, fine. It will enter the code, and once you enter the code, it's going to see console.log, like, okay, you said I should log fun. So the program is going to ask your function, like, okay, do you have fun inside your house? And fun function will be like, need to check. No, I don't have fun function. So fun function is going to tell your program, you know what, I don't have it, but you can ask my parents, which is the Windows scope. So the program will now go out of the function and ask the parent, like, okay, do you have function? The parent will be like, oh yes, I have something called function and it has a value of 5. So take it. So once it takes it, it's going to print it out. That is why we have this. And if you remember, I said local variables have access to global variables. It's just like me, I have my parents. That means whatever my parents have, I have access to it. But if I have my own, I can be selfish and my parents won't have access to whatever I have. So local variables, they have access to whatever you have outside. But if we have something here, let's say this function is declared here inside this. So if I do something like console.log fun. So if I do this, trust me, and I run the function, let's see what's going to happen. We are not going to get anything. Oh, this is actually hosting. Oops. I have to refresh. Actually, this is hosting. So it's another topic that we get into. Come on, I don't like that. So this is hosting. But don't worry, I will explain that we have something called hoisting. Is it hoisting? I think that English is. We call this hoisting. But don't worry, we'll soon get to that. So that is where your program will, send the variable to the global variable. So the summary of what I've actually said is, number one, we have two types of what's it called? Two types of scope. We have the global scope and we have the local scope. So variables declared within a function are local to that function. Function, let me say new, okay, local, let's do local scope, function local scope. So variable declared here, new variable, okay. Variable declared here are local to this function. So variable declared within a function are local to that function. Variable declared outside a function, old variable, let's do old variable. Variable declared outside, let's do, what can we write? Let's write 10. So variable declared outside of a function are global variables. Variable declared inside of a function are not accessible from the outside of the function. Functions can access global variables. The lifetime of a variable starts when it is declared. Once we declare this, the lifetime has started. So that means we can actually have access to it. We can do whatever we want to do with it. So new variable, I can print this out. I can say, you know what, new variable plus 1. I can say new variable equals, so it has a lifetime here. So equals, instead of 5, it equals 90 now. So I can do this. So the lifetime of a variable starts when it is declared. So the question now is, when is the lifetime going to end? Local variables are deleted when the function is completed. So once I run this function, once this function finishes whatever action I want it to perform, then the local variable is deleted. It is gone. Global variables are always available. They are always available. Because sometimes I can have like many functions and they can access this global variable from any time they want, because it's always readily available. But if you have local variables inside a function, once this function ends, if you call this function, once the function finishes whatever action you want it to perform, the local variable is dead. But this global variable is always available. So the only time this global variable is going to be deleted is when you close your browser, or probably you close a tab. So if I close this tab now, then the what was it called? The global variable is gone. So that means if I refresh and I reload the browser, then the global variable is going to be available again. So right after this class, I actually have some exercises for us that we can actually try and see what, just to like understand what scoping is all about. So do we have any question before we move on to the next level, next stage? Do we have any question? We want to do something advanced now, and it's going to be very, very interesting. Do we have any question before we move on? Hello, anybody there?
Yes, sir. It's clear, sir.
Okay, it's clear. Okay, so let's move on to the. So